My school was divided into small schools within the big school because the school is 3,500 people. And the schools kind of basically were effectively tracks. And there were some people that were still in the big school. And if you were still in the big school, that was like being in the lowest track. Like those were classes I think I've heard were just like a joke. I mean, the main thing was just that there was this mentality, and maybe this was just me or the whole school culture or all high school everywhere, but I don't think it's all high school everywhere, where it's like you're a sucker if you put a lot of effort in. And like, obviously, the goal is to get away with doing as little as possible. So even when I was in these classes with like teachers that I found kind of inspiring, I was trying to blow it off as much as I could get away with. And so I was never actually really applying myself, and I used to skip class like at least one period a day, like every day. So I didn't really feel like I got a lot out of it academically, but I had a really rich social experience. Classrooms were really social experiences. Like, who you have in your classes is really important. And if you have a class with a friend, you're hell excited because you get to really socialize during class. If I had been in a private school, I think I would feel like really outside of my zone whenever I wasn't around the private school kids, which tend to be a really homogenous group of upper class, basically white people. And it's not that Berkeley High was like this utopia of integration or anything like that. Like, it definitely wasn't. But I mean, I was sitting next every day. I was sitting next to people that weren't the kind of kids that would ever end up in a private school. And so I think that like that's just like such a part of who I am. I'm completely open to being around people that are not like me. Like, I find that something that I'm attracted to and like drawn to. And I think that I don't want to like make assumptions, but I do think that people that go to school and all of those years, those like really young formative years around people that they can basically trust are like coming from a similar experience as they are. I think that they feel a lot more daunted by the idea of trying to connect with somebody who's not like that. That's just like a really shitty idea to imagine feeling that way. My, Berkeley public school education, there was a lot of like what we would call now more progressive or like alternative methods of teaching, where it's like break the kids up into groups and have them like actively like do stuff rather than just like the traditional like student lectures, kids take notes silently. In principle, I believe in the group work, but I kind of think that if the teacher is good enough, I don't remember teachers that I really loved where there was a lot of like breaking up into group work, because that seems kind of like the lecture style thing is failing, doesn't work, can't hold the teacher, like the kids can't, their attention doesn't, like wavers and nobody listens and they can't just like command the classroom for a full hour. So there's like all these other things that they have to do, where it's like, okay, now we're gonna do this activity, everybody do this activity. You know what our school had that like is important to mention is that I had like the most amazing experience ever doing this like student run theater thing. And that was my favorite thing about school. And that I don't think happens everywhere, but Berkeley High, we had that. It's big enough. It was like this like one act thing that's been a tradition in our school, and it's all student runs. That was amazing, and I love that. I also had a lot of fun playing sports. So I guess like the extracurricular things were pretty good, and I enjoyed those. I made it because I just took it for granted. I never even questioned that like I was always going to be one of the more capable people, and I was going to go to college, and it was never up for debate. Like my parents just, I don't know, like my parents just reflected back to me that I was like supposed to be a sort of intellectual person. That's just the culture of my family, and so then that's the culture of the friends that I made, and we all just like did it. And I think like those are the people that I identified with. We gravitated towards each other because we all came from parents that were like that, and so that's how we saw each other, and that was just the life we were making. And I mean, if the people that you're like identify with come from, you know, a culture where like that's not taken for granted because there aren't as many examples of that, then you just kind of follow suit. Like, I don't know. It's not like I was just doing like what everyone expected of me. People just do that and they just mirror whatever expectations there are for them.
So what do you feel like your dream classroom would look like to help all those other kids who like don't obviously have that kind of support?
I think a main thing is just like the size of classrooms, because you can't have everyone engaged if there's over 30 people in a room. You just can't. I mean, I think it's really great when, you know, like the teacher that was my favorite teacher, he, like, our final project research paper was just like do a research paper on anything. And all of our homework was just note making, which means you can write about anything that's happening in the time period that we're studying about. So it's just always super self-directed. And I think that's really important. So, like, I think if the classroom's small enough, then you can, like, take the kids and find a way to make it self-directed and make it, like, self-motivated and not have it just be like, this is, like, the answer they're looking for on my worksheet. I don't know. It's a really fine line between, like, being super authoritarian and just, like, making kids disciplined and making them perform. And just having them, like, be super strict, because it's like you're not going to get away with any bullshit and you just have to learn how to follow instructions. And that's the most important thing we're going to get out of 16-year-olds. And being like, no, kids have to come and, like, it can't be an it can't be a relationship based on authority. They have to feel like, you know, like there's nothing to rebel against, and that's the only way that they're going to get them to stop pushing back, if they feel like it's their space and they can just, you know, like create their own like material collectively, which is like how college is supposed to be. Like my college, it was very like the kids come together and we just kind of like let the students guide what the material is going to be like, and it's all just kind of like comes from the classroom, where instead of like the teacher telling us what we're supposed to learn, because it was like a small whatever school. But I don't know, I kind of think I'm starting to think that kids aren't really ready for that, and that like learning how to control yourself is something that's really important, and I just don't know.
What do you mean learning how to control yourself?
I just think that like if I had just actually learned better like study habits, I think that I would be really well served by that now. Like I don't feel very disciplined. Like high school, like my entire schooling before college was never about discipline at all. It was just about like being sneaky and bullshitting, and I could totally get away with that. And I feel like that just doesn't serve me. Like if I could actually just focus and like read and like do my homework on time without like having the chance of making excuses, and like sit and pay attention and organize, like be organized, and that, I don't know, maybe that would be better. But on the other hand, it's like, I don't know, maybe like 15-year-olds just aren't meant to sit. I mean, I definitely think that kids aren't meant to sit in the desk that many hours a day. And I think that the school days should be like a lot shorter and have a lot more breaks, and kids need to move around a lot more. But I definitely see both sides of it. I definitely think that you have to learn how to follow instructions first and then learn how to like critically think about them or something. I don't know. I just think it's a mess when kids have like don't learn any discipline. I think that discipline is kind of important.